The election of a new pope always stirs two great questions in the hearts of the faithful and the curious alike. The first, and by far the most important, is obvious. Who will ascend to the chair of St. Peter? The second may seem lighter in weight, but it's every bit as fascinating. What name will he choose? From Rome to Rio, the question fuels conversations, speculation, and even betting pools. Will the next pontiff honor his predecessor and become Francis II? Will he revive the line of Benedict XVII? Or perhaps return to something more classic like John Paul III or Paul VII? Or, against all expectations, will he break with every precedent and select a name never before spoken in the annals of papal history? The choice of a papal name is more than formality. It's a gesture steeped in centuries of symbolism, tradition, and meaning. It tells the world what kind of shepherd the new pope hopes to be. Yet few realize that this ancient practice is not a command but a custom. There is no canon law requiring a pope to change his name. Technically, he could remain Cardinal so-and-so and begin his reign unchanged, but over time, this tradition grew so powerful that it became an unwritten rule inside the Vatican, an expectation as strong as any decree. To trace its roots, we journey back to the early centuries of Christianity. In those days, many popes simply kept the names they were born with, names that would later vanish from use altogether. Some were so peculiar that they appear only once in church history. That pattern continued until the year 533, when a remarkable moment reshaped papal identity forever. A man named Mercurius was elected pope. His name, derived from Mercury, the Roman god of commerce and travelers, stood awkwardly beside the Christian gospel, realizing that a pontiff named after a pagan deity would send the wrong message. Mercurius made a courageous and historic choice. He renounced his birth name and took a new one, John II. This act marked the first time in history a pope assumed a new name upon election. Though no official record survives explaining his reasoning, scholars generally agree that his goal was to distance the papacy from pagan associations. By choosing John, he linked himself to a venerable Christian lineage and the evangelist whose gospel begins. In the beginning was the Word. Interestingly, the name Dionysius, also rooted in pagan mythology, had been used by an earlier pope without controversy, showing how flexible early practice once was. Still, John II's precedent didn't immediately catch fire. Many of his successors reverted to using their original names: Agapetus, Silverius, Vigilius, and Pelagius, among others. Only decades later did John III, born Catalinus, possibly follow suit, though historians still debate whether Catalinus was a nickname or his given name. For nearly 4 centuries after John II, popes continued to reign under their birth names. Then, in 955, the pattern would shift again, ushering in a new era where choosing a papal name became a symbol not just of humility, but of mission. That turning point came with Pope John XII. Born Octavianus, upon his election in 955, he chose to abandon his birth name, a decision that breathed new life into the tradition begun centuries earlier by John II. From that moment, the practice of adopting a papal name began to take firm root. While a few successors still preferred their original names, a growing number embraced this symbolic gesture of transformation, marking the start of their spiritual rebirth as the Vicar of Christ. One particularly striking case occurred in 983, when John XIII became only the 4th pope in history to take a new name. His decision carried profound symbolism. He had been born Peter, and out of reverence, he refused to bear the same name as the apostle whom Christ called the Rock. To this day, no pope has ever dared to call himself Peter II, a silent homage to the fisherman from Galilee who was, by tradition, the church's first leader. From then on, the custom became deeply entrenched, so much so that only 2 popes since have kept their birth names: Adrian VI in 1522 and Marcellus II in 1555. The latter remains the last pontiff to retain his original name after election. Every pope since has chosen a new one, each name carrying its own legacy, vision, and often the symbolic opening of a new era in church history. Among these chosen names, one stands above all others: John. It is the most popular papal name in history, chosen by 21 officially recognized pontiffs. Yet if you examine the historical list, you'll notice a curious gap. After John 15 comes John 7th, skipping John 16th entirely. What happened to him? The answer lies in one of the papacy's darker chapters. John 16th was later declared an anti-pope, a rival claimant installed during a rebellion. After being overthrown, He suffered a brutal fate. His tongue was torn out, his fingers broken, and his eyes gouged before he was forced into monastic exile, where he died 2 years later. Still, his brief claim to legitimacy was strong enough that later popes respected his numbering. Thus, the next elected John became John XVII. The confusion didn't end there. Centuries later, a simple clerical mistake caused another skip. There was never a Pope John XV. The numbering jumped straight to John XXI, a Portuguese pontiff who accepted the error and carried the title as written. And yet, another twist awaited in the 15th century, a time of chaos when multiple men claimed the papal throne. One of them styled himself John XXIII. He was later deemed an anti-pope and removed from the official record. When the legitimate John XXIII was elected in the 20th century, he deliberately kept the title, honoring the name despite its troubled past. So, in a curious way, history has given us two Johns XXIII, one erased, one canonized by memory. It's a reminder that even in the sacred realm of tradition, human error and divine providence have often danced side by side. In total, history has seen 21 officially recognized popes named John, along with 2 anti-popes who also claim the same title. And, of course, the 2 modern popes who fused that name with another to become John Paul I and John Paul II. The legacy of John runs deeper than any other papal name. It has inspired devotion, debate, and even legend, such as the mysterious tale of Pope Joan, the supposed female pope said to have reigned in disguise. Though historians widely regard it as myth, the story itself shows just how powerfully the name John resonates in Christian imagination. But why John? Why does this name tower above all others in papal history? The answer lies partly in the explanation offered by Pope John XXIII, the most recent pontiff to bear it. When asked why he chose John, he gave a beautifully simple response. It was the name of 2 of Christ's closest followers, John the Baptist, the prophet who prepared the way for the Messiah, and John the Evangelist, the beloved disciple and author of 5 New Testament books. For Pope John XXIII, that name carried both spiritual power and humility, and as each successive pope took it, its prestige only deepened, a kind of spiritual echo that grew louder with time. Every John seemed to borrow strength from the legacy of those before him. Of course, not every Pope John embodied that ideal. John XII, for instance, led one of the most scandalous reigns in church history, dying under disgrace after being caught in bed with a married woman. Yet even those darker episodes couldn't diminish the enduring symbolism of the name. Over the centuries, John came to signify continuity, renewal, and a reverence for the church's earliest roots. While John became the church's most repeated name, others appeared only once, especially in the early centuries, before papal renaming became customary. Take, for example, Pope Dionysius, the 25th pope, who reigned in the 3rd century. His name, surprisingly, derived from Dionysus, the Greek god of wine and ecstasy, the polar opposite of Christian asceticism. Yet in that era, pagan names were still common among converts, and Dionysius simply kept his birth name. He lived during one of the most dangerous and formative periods in Christian history, long before Emperor Constantine's conversion, when Christianity was still outlawed and persecuted throughout the Roman Empire. Early papal history is filled with names that now sound almost otherworldly: Hilarius, Gelasius, Miltiades, Simplicius, Donus, Formosus, Romanus, and Lando. The last of these, Pope Lando, reigned in the 10th century and after him. An unbroken line of popes either reused existing papal names or were born with names that already carried papal precedent. This continuity held strong for more than 1,000 years, until the world witnessed something entirely new in 1978. That year, Pope John Paul I created a hybrid never before seen, a papal name that combined 2 giants of modern Catholicism, John XXIII and Paul VI, the men who guided the Church through the transformative Second Vatican Council. It was both a tribute and a bridge, symbolizing unity between tradition and progress. Yet even this new name was formed from 2 old ones. The real break from history came later. In 2013, when a Jesuit cardinal from Argentina named Jorge Mario Bergoglio chose a name no pope had ever used before: Francis. His choice was bold, simple, and profoundly symbolic. By naming himself after Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron of peace and poverty, He declared from the moment of his election what kind of church he intended to lead, one rooted in humility, mercy, and care for the forgotten. That single act of naming redefined the papal image for a new century. People often ask, why haven't we had a Pope Luke or a Pope Matthew? After all, those are also names of the evangelists. The reason is simpler than you might expect. When a pope chooses his name, he isn't picking at random. He's aligning himself with a legacy. Each name carries centuries of associations, examples, and expectations. Names like Luke or Matthew have never been chosen simply because no papal lineage precedes them. They lack the inherited symbolism that popes traditionally seek to honor or emulate. Still, nothing in canon law forbids it. A future pontiff could choose Luke, or even a name completely new to history. Theoretically, he could even choose Peter II. But here lies one of the most sacred unwritten rules in Catholicism. No pope dares to take the name Peter. Why? Because Peter the Apostle is considered the very first pope, the foundation upon which Christ said, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." To claim the name Peter II would be seen as equating oneself with the original apostle, an act bordering on spiritual arrogance. Thus, refraining from Peter has become an act of reverent humility, an unspoken vow never to stand on equal ground with the rock of the church. In contrast, other names have quietly faded away for different reasons. Names like Lando, Hilarious, or Formosus simply lost their resonance, their legacies too distant or obscure to inspire successors. In some cases, a name became tainted by historical scandal or controversy, and later popes chose to avoid it altogether. Curiously, the Vatican has never officially banned any name. That means a future pope could, in theory, call himself Peter II, or even, though unthinkably, Pope Judas. Of course, while technically allowed, such names would clash violently with the faith's symbolism and moral memory. Some things, while not forbidden, are simply unimaginable. And that brings us to the question that always stirs excitement and speculation whenever a conclave begins. What will the next pope call himself? Will he honor a past tradition, revive a forgotten name, or choose something that marks an entirely new chapter for the church? One thing is certain. In the world of papal history, a name is never just a name. It is a message, a mirror, a mission. And as the centuries continue to turn, the next papal name, whatever it may be, will carry with it not only a legacy of faith, but also a vision for the church yet to come. So, what do you think? What should the next pope's name be? Would you like to see a revival of the old, John the XIV, Benedict XVII, or a bold new beginning with a name we've never heard before? Share your thoughts below, and join us as we continue exploring the hidden history of faith, tradition, and the mysteries that shape the heart of the church. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration of papal names and their fascinating legacy, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Following Christ channel, and check out our other deep dives into the mysteries of church history. God bless, and see you next time.